Welcome to another Gamma Partner Artist feature. Today we talk with Tyler Foust. Tyler talks all things unique and unusual entries into the art space, what it's like to be an artist, how to create, the process, and even gives away some of his special chef's secrets. I hope you enjoy the conversation. All right, so today we have Tyler Foust. Very excited, of course, to have Tyler on. Tyler and Gamma go way back. I'm going to let Tyler introduce himself, but you'll recognize his very unique style with his line art. He says it's one simple line, which we all know it's obviously not so simple, but we love his attitude and his humor on the social media. But enough from me. Tyler, introduce yourself, tell everyone about you, where this all started, I guess like the genesis story of your line art and anything that you'd like to share.
Sure. Yeah. So thanks, Brett. So my name's Tyler Foust. I had kind of an unconventional start in art. I actually found myself in grad school for not an art related field. It was healthcare administration, and stuck in these 4-hour lectures 3 times a week. And I realized I had to do something to kind of like cure my boredom, but something I could also do so I could pay attention in class. And so one day I had the grand idea that I would just grab a sheet of paper. I had a pen, and I said, you know what, I'm going to draw as many lines on this paper as possible and see if I can take up all 4 hours of just line work. And so that's how everything started. So I did that on a sheet of paper, and it ended up taking like almost exactly 4 hours to complete this one piece of paper. My teacher was convinced I was taking like most hardcore notes, and I was just drawing these lines, and I was just like putting one line and stacking another line on top of that, real repetitive. But the point of it was so I could literally listen to my professor. It was kind of like I created like a really basic algorithm that I could follow, but also listen to the professor, if that makes sense. Because what it kept me from doing is it kept me from getting on my phone or getting on my computer and completely tuning out. So in one way, it might seem really distracting if you're like, man, that kid's trolling all day while I'm talking. But it was actually a really easy tool for me to use to stay very engaged in discussion and in lecture. So that's how it all started.
Yeah. And so, when you were doing that, how did you start to realize, hey, I enjoy doing this, and hey, maybe I'm pretty good at it? How did it grow?
Well, initially, because what I was doing was so repetitive, that first couple days that I did it, I was just, I don't know, I just started getting used to the whole process. And then I compared like one drawing I did a few days after the very first drawing, and I realized, oh, dang, my line consistency is really improved over like a very short amount of time. And I was like, I wonder if I continue to do this, that maybe I get more consistent. I don't know, which it makes sense. I mean, I was basically just doing a very monotonous workout, right? Very consistent over and over, thousands of times. And I just kept doing it, and then I would take it at the end of class and I would throw it in the trash. That was kind of like my pattern until someone was like, "Hey, um, I saw your doodles in class, and you should probably do something with them." I'm like what? Like, I don't know, put them somewhere. So I went on Reddit and I posted a drawing on Reddit, and it got some good attention, which surprised me because it was just, to me, I was like, that's just a doodle that I do on the back of worksheets and stuff. But it got some attention, and what really solidified the deal was this one guy reaches out to me in a direct message on Reddit, and literally his message was like, "Hey, I'm so and so. I'm autistic. I hate curvy lines, but I like the curvy lines that you're drawing, and I color them. So I need you to keep posting them so I can have something to color." And I was like, perfect. This is awesome. I don't know who this guy is, but he's coloring in all my work, and it's benefiting him. This would convince me to continue to do it through class. And so I think from that point, I just continued to post and post. And probably about after 2 weeks of doing this, some other person randomly reaches out and like, hey, can I buy your art? And I think at that point it was the first time someone was like, your art, you know? And I was like, yeah, my art. Let me talk about my art. It's like, well, how much could I buy it for? And I'm thinking like, I don't know, because I did sell one piece of art a long time before that, and it wasn't the price point was not very high. So I didn't really commit to a price, but then he was like, would you be okay with 200 bucks? And I was like, yes, that's right. That's my going rate, you know. And I was like, this is such a scam. But it wasn't a scam. The guy really bought the art, and literally from that point forward, I guess through just being consistent, posting about the art, kind of marketing what I've been doing, um, and getting messages from people, I started getting more and more commissions to the point where from that guy forward, I had a commission for the next like 3 years. You know, I always had something to work on. And it literally, just doing that and just having these commissions kind of push me in different directions. Like someone's like, hey, I like what you do. Now I want you to use color, which was a new concept for me. And then someone's like, could you actually do a thing like a person or something? And I'm like, I don't know. So I started pushing it, and it just kind of evolved. And so now I've got like two different styles. I do one I'm probably most well known for is like the one line style. And then I have this other style where it's just basically my first style, which is like lines on top of lines. It's kind of a mess, but it's just like I call it algorithmic drawing because I just give myself rules to follow. I follow those rules and I come out with whatever the output is, and it's just a fun way to draw for me. But yeah, it just kind of blew up over time, and it helped support me through school, and it helped me listen and pay attention. So it was really fun.
Yeah, no, it's such a unique story, and it's so funny to think that you started doing it just as, you know, something to help you concentrate, and then it can turn into, you know, almost a career for you. So tell us
Yeah.
about that. You mentioned that you see it as like algorithmic drawing. Can you elaborate on that for people? Like what is your process? Obviously, you don't have to give away,
Oh
you
no,
know,
I don't.
the chef's secret, but
You know, one thing I like to do is give away the chef's secret because I think it's beneficial for a lot of people to draw this way. I'm not really worried about someone saying, you know, I'm going to take his style and just sell it. Although some people have gone that direction, but you know, I don't really feel threatened because in a way, like line work is a lot like your fingerprint. You can try to do exactly how I do it, but you're going to have your own style, which is great because you'll have a different twist to it and just the way that you do your lines, and it will come out different still. So I love teaching it to people, but my process with like especially the algorithmic drawings that's what I call them is basically all I do is I create really basic rule sets, and I don't predetermine what the picture is going to look like. I just predetermine the rules, and then I just follow those rules. And so while I'm drawing, it's actually like I'm observing too, because I don't really know what's going to happen with it. Sometimes, you know, it looks junky, but sometimes it's really cool. So it's kind of exciting. So like, for example, my favorite rule set to work with is draw one line, and then I take the the starting point of that line to the ending point of that line. I draw another line and I connect those points, and then I keep doing that, and eventually that it gets bigger and bigger. I call them wave flows, and when it gets to a certain point, it hurts my hand to go any further, and I'm not very like steady with my hand. I can't do a certain arch so large. So then I take one of the points and then I go to an existing point and then I break off and start another point and then I start building from that point. So that just kind of like starts creating some crazy bloom, and it always turns out kind of fun, pretty interesting, and yeah, I would say anyone do that. It's like I call it brain idling. You literally it takes no brain power to do it. You can be linked into anyone, any conversation in the background. If you're on a Zoom meeting, do it because you can listen. Looks like you're taking notes, but you're just brain idling. I don't know how else to call it. So it's a fun thing to do. It's pretty fun thing to do to relax. So it's a lot about the process. Thank goodness people like the output as well.
Yeah, how does that feel as an artist when you start to get recognized? We can talk about things that you've created and success that you've had on with us at Gamma and through Reddit and obviously through your first ordinals drop that we'll get to. How does it feel when all of a sudden you think, well, hold on a second, no, this is real, people want to pay, obviously, like that person paid you $200 to start with, but how do you deal with that aspect of it?
Well, first off, I'm just really grateful. It's exciting that people feel that way. Um, my very, very first start in art that I didn't mention, I had created this like it was like this mural, abstract colors. I was really just trying to cover up like an electrical panel in my house, my college room, and it was ugly. And I want to just put something over this panel. And I created something abstract. Well, then like a year or two later, we move out, and me and my wife are having a garage sale, and I put it in the garage sale. And this lady is like, "Hey, I want to buy this art." I put it in there because I wanted to be able to brag about how I'm a professional artist if someone were to buy my art. But it wasn't great, but I'll give her that. But she wanted to buy it. And so I'm like, yeah, it's 50 cents. And she talks me down to 25 cents, which, okay, that's a pretty accurate portrayal of what it's like getting into the art world anyway. So you get nickel and dime a little bit. So she buys it, but it's like, hey, now I can brag. So I like swivel over to my wife and I'm like, hey, guess that makes me a professional artist. And this lady overheard me as she's walking with my canvas and my art. And then she's like, no, I didn't buy this for your art. I bought this because canvas is expensive and I'm going to paint over this as soon as I get home. And I was like, oh. so, so that was my entry into art, right? So that was like my first experience. So to go from that moment to a point where people want my art and they don't have plans to paint over it, that's pretty cool. And it's pretty special. So I love that. And I love that, people push me in other directions and try to challenge me to do things. And it's just fun. So without all that support, I really wouldn't have developed at all. So I think that that's like, for me, it was really important because I don't see myself, I didn't really grow up in an artistic family. Um, Art was never an avenue that would have been supported in my household without maybe a lot of scrutiny. So,
Mm.
yeah, so it was just kind of a surprise to me, but I'm enjoying it.
And yeah, that's really unique. So there was no, I guess, nurturing in that area. What about yourself at home? You have a family now. How is that? I assume now you've got an art studio. Are your kids into it? How's the difference in mentality in the way that your family runs now?
Well, I think kids do follow a lot in the footsteps of their parents. They get excited about things that their parents are excited about. So I think all of my kids have kind of like a little bit of an art bug, some more than others, but my daughter likes to, paint while I'm doing a drawing. And my son, actually, I have a son who's 16, and he's sat beside me as I've kind of gone through my process and showed him how it all works, and he's probably mastered what I do to a better degree. So it's kind of funny. He does, he's got some really crazy artwork out there that I'm like, dang man, you really took it to another level. But he doesn't really market, so that's great. I don't have competition against him yet, but it's pretty fun to see him grow.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I'm going to pull up an artwork that I think you named it the Impossible Line.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, tell us about this one and why it was so tricky. And then you can also talk about how you decide what you are going to draw. Like where does this come from? Like, for example, this one, and then whatever else you do end up drawing, because you've drawn orcas, you've drawn skulls, you've drawn shapes.
Yeah. So one thing that is inspiring is just kind of looking at something and thinking, how can I convert this to a 2D single line drawing where a line does not intersect, which is basically my theme for all my one line drawings. The main rule is don't intersect the line. And that makes it kind of like, gives it a whole different degree of challenge for me. It makes it fun. And so this piece, it's called the Impossible Line V1 because I've actually done a lot of versions of this exact drawing, trying to get it exactly where I wanted it. And this was kind of the concept drawing, but it wasn't the final drawing. But basically, I saw this table. This was someone had created this table with like some metal work. They had like welded all the corners together. Not a great functioning table, but a really interesting table where it's all like it's kind of one line in itself. If you see the table, it's like a big loop, and it was really 3D. It's awesome. But I thought it might be really fun, but super complex to make this a 2D drawing with one line, kind of like that same theme, but without ever letting anything intersect. And it was the most challenging drawing I've ever tried. I mean, it was just really hard for me to mentally break down how it could look right with one line. And so that was one of the versions I started doing. I usually plug my name inside my artwork. I did it on this one. It's at the bottom left corner on that bottom bar. But my final version of this drawing doesn't have my name because of the way I just ended up working with it. But yeah, I mean, I don't have any clue what the original question was.
No, that's fine. No, you definitely answered it, and just more in regards to how you decide what to draw, where the inspiration's drawn from.
Absolutely.
Pardon the use of the word drawn again.
It's okay. I'm a simple man. You can use the same word over and over.
All right. And so, yeah, I'm going to pull up your next one. You're actually wearing the t-shirt. So while I do that, you and I have spoken a lot about not just obviously the digital art that you create, but art on clothing and different products and whatnot. Where do you see the crossover, and how have you approached that with your career?
So yeah, I mean, I'm not a clothing distributor for one. So that it's still a challenge, but I like art on clothing. I think it always goes hand in hand. So I think, one of the things I still aspire to do is really put out more of a clothing line. I do have a website which is literally called tfoust.com, like TEE Foust.com. So that's where I sell shirts that I have right now. But yeah, I think that clothing and art, they go hand in hand, and it's always been something that I think would be really fun. And one of my goals is to just be walking in public one day and see someone wearing my art. I literally have an art piece ready for the first person I find in the wild. I want to reward that person when I come across them. So we'll see if it ever happens, but it's on my bucket list.
That would be really cool. And that gets me thinking that you do a lot of your art, or potentially almost all of your art, on paper. You do the physical work and do a lot of scanning, etc. It's not pure digital work. Have you? Yeah, I guess elaborate on that aspect of how you create, and potentially why you do that.
Yeah. So yeah, hold on. I'll get you an example. So yeah, what people don't see is like I do have a lot of like attempts where, for example, like this right here, I was trying to draw this cardinal. I don't know if you can see it real well. And I was just
Yeah, we have.
just me kind of trying to figure out the best way it would look with different line work. That's supposed to. We go to Melissa Cardinals, it's the school, and so my daughter wants a shirt, and so I was trying to figure out the right line thickness, the right configuration. So I do a lot of sketching, but I always do it pen and paper. If I do something digital, it was always drawn on paper first, just because I think I'm faster on paper. I can get my concepts out better. I'm just too old school, I think. But I know that there's a lot of really cool features like the undo button if I went digital, but I don't know. For me, it's not really the same. But I also really like to get physical artwork in people's hands. So if I do sell like an NFT, something I love to do is I'd like to do these random bids or auctions and send the physical piece to the person who got that digital piece. I think that there's a good I think there's a good use case for digital art and physical art, and I think that it's fun to make them go hand in hand.
Yeah, no, I can completely see where you're coming from, and I'm also the very lucky recipient of some of that. And the t-shirt that you're wearing is this one, which was your first print that you did with Gamma,
Mm-hmm.
which is the Great Wave by Hokusai. Are you a
Absolutely.
fan of that artwork? And yeah, talk us through how you created that. And it's obviously, you can see, a sort of different color through that. So, how do you decide colors and what pens you're going to use and size and shape and, that part of the process?
Yeah, so this drawing, first off, that piece, the Great Wave, has always been one of those pieces where if you're looking at it, there's a lot of line work built into it. And so it's really fun because I can always kind of interpret it in different ways. And I probably have drawn that, different versions of it, probably like 10 times. And it's one of my favorite go-to drawings to mess with. So on this one that you're looking at, I drew the original in black and white, on white paper with black ink. And when I want to make something digital, the cool thing is I can use tools and I can change the colors of the line work, and just kind of augment a lot of things. And so that's what I did with this one. Um, I just inversed basically the colors and then added some shades of blue to it, which I liked and thought would stand out and kind of help me get to where I really wanted to be. Because one thing you can't do, which is really difficult, is it's hard to get black paper and then draw good colors over it that don't like bleed into it. That's one setback, but something you can do with digital is fix all that. So that's what I did here. I just digitally edited a physical drawing.
Yeah, there you go. And you said before, you made a great point that when you're creating in, physically on paper, there's no undo button. So how often, do you start again, or how long does a piece take? Obviously, it's very size dependent. So I know you create
Yeah.
from small to quite enormous, really.
Well, surprisingly, a lot of the things that I do, like I do have a pretty good planning phase of, so I kind of know different areas where I don't want to be putting a lot of my line work, and I know areas where I want to put a lot of line work. And so I do kind of like map out what I want to draw. Sometimes I'll draw the picture first with, pretty traditional drawing. I'll sketch it and basically just color in areas where I don't want lines to be, and then I leave other stuff negative where I don't draw anything where I want the lines to be. So I have a process for that. And so once I go through that process of that draft drawing, that I don't ever share really that. But I mean, not that I can't, it's just, it's not exciting. But it tells me kind of how I want the picture to flow. So if I do a draft drawing and then I move it to convert it all into one line, it's a lot easier for me. And I would say my like success rate or my error rate is probably like, I don't know, probably like one in every 10 drawings I'll make a mistake to where I just have to toss it. If I'm doing a project that's going to take me 40 hours, I don't make mistakes. I just go slow because I can't.
Mm.
I mean, I can't afford to do that at all. So that it does get me nervous when I'm at like hour 38 and I've got just a little bit left, then I'm just antsy. I don't want anyone to be around it. It's crazy. So I try not to commit to 40-hour projects as much as I used to, but yeah, I mean, it's a pretty fluid process once I start going, and I'm pretty deliberate with where I put my lines, and I don't have as my error rate's not so bad.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You said, you try not to take on 40-hour projects. Are you pretty good now at almost estimating how long something will take given the size or perhaps what it is? And has the error rate, do you think, come down as you've become more experienced?
Yeah, it's come down a lot. It's like if you ever imagine like a game of Snake, where you just have to never cross over the snake. But you can play as slow as you want. It's pretty easy. So yeah, I think that as I've gotten better, I've gotten a lot faster because I've gotten better hand control, and my technique is a little bit more fluid. And I don't, that's nice. I've got a lot more muscle memory for that, which is a learned skill. Like anyone could really learn how to do this. And people always say, "Oh, that'd be impossible." But I always tell people, like, if you just do some of these practice drawings with that one style I mentioned first, that will really get you in shape to just get better lines. So, what was the question? Yeah.
No, that's fine. You answered it again. Like how your experience has shaped how you create. And we should, it would be remiss of us not to bring it up. So you're obviously one of the more famous or more prominent artists in the Reddit drops. So without specifically speaking about, the art that you created there, but how do you think just your experience through that and in the space has kind of impacted or shaped the way in which you approach working in ordinals or NFTs or doing the Reddit collectibles, etc.?
Yeah, well, I've definitely learned a lot. I think before I got onto, before I started mixing in with Reddit, um, I was really used to selling my physical art to people. And, these people are not really people that are investing in my art. These are people that I want to own this art, and keep it and put it somewhere. Maybe I've had like one or two people who put a lot of faith in my abilities early on, and they are hoping that something will happen. I don't know. But when I went over into the Reddit side and to um, ordinals and working with stacks, there's different people now in the mix, right? And neither of them are bad or good. It's just an awareness that there's different audience where people like to buy and collect, and some are collectors and some are people that like to collect, and maybe they'll want to flip it later because maybe they believe that the art will become more valuable, and both are fine. Neither of them bother me because both of them support my artwork, and I love that. So, but considering that, I think that how that's changed my mindset is you consider what might be valuable to someone who's a collector, especially on the digital side. You've got to be more conscientious of what NFTs really do, which is allow digital scarcity. So how that plays an impact on, a limited run of a certain print might be really important. So I think that it's kind of changed just my mindset of just those two different audiences and how those blend together, and also build your community. So I think that they're both great, and I'm glad that they're both there. But yeah, I think just getting a different awareness of a different audience as well that gets to experience the journey with me is pretty fun.
And so through that, you did deal with a lot of artists. Can be more than one point. What are some key pieces of advice that you do give to creators in the space, or what advice would you give if they were to ask?
Well, if you are an artist looking to do physical work or NFTs, and you want to, I guess, become more well known and get your art out there, I would tell you a couple of things. I would tell you, one, be consistent, because people that are want to be fans of yours, and they want to grow to, follow your art, they really want to do that. And so I think a lot of people, especially collectors, they want to see, like, if I'm going to buy into this piece, is this person going to be here tomorrow, or is this kind of a one-off? Because a lot of people like to follow that journey, and that's exciting. Um, so I'd say be consistent. I would say also, I would say find a style that really fits your comfort. I think a lot of times, I know for me, there was a time where when Reddit asked me to come work with them and try a project with them, and they told me they wanted me to do a derivative of their mascot. I did so many drawings of like kind of like classical cartoon style drawings, had nothing to do with my line work, because I just thought, I can't, like, that doesn't even make sense to these people. Like, why would I do that? But then I ultimately just got to a point where I'm like, you know what, that's what I do. So I can put that out and do the style that I'm used to and the style that people know me for, or I can try to do this random like old school Walt Disney style and see what that's going to do. And I'm glad I just kind of like backtracked and decided to just stay true to my style, because I think that that's how people really get to know an artist. And especially if you can get to a point where people can see art and say, I know who did that art. I mean, I think that that's really what every artist really should aspire to do. So I would say my second piece of advice is find a style that you enjoy, that you can do, and stick with it and develop it. And I think that would set you apart. So do that, be consistent, and probably have other advice, but I can't think of it right now. But those two are really important.
Yeah, for sure. And as we, start to wrap up, that's really pertinent advice. And it's been such a pleasure sort of taking a deep dive into you and your style and your process, among other things. You also seem to really, I guess, have fun and be yourself and, name your art fun things like Marilyn Monroe and things like, was it Marilyn Monroe or Single Line Monroe? I can't remember.
It was Monoline Monroe.
Monoline Monroe. Yeah. So perhaps your third piece of advice is make sure that you're having fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's fun because I like to involve people in my art. A lot of times I can't title something, and most of the time other people have a much better title. So make allow other people to be a part of that journey with you and help have them help you name things. And I don't know, I think it's fun.
Absolutely. Well, Tyler, it's a pleasure to have you as part of the Gamma Partner Program. We obviously love what you're dropping on Gamma and wish you the best with everything that you drop elsewhere as well. What can we expect, in the next little while from you?
Well, I've got some things brewing. I think that you will see more work from me on Reddit. I think that that's a given. You will see a. I've been working for quite a while now, probably a year and a half on some content for a large drop. I've partnered with um, Polygon to a degree, and we're working on a project. And you'll also see some ordinal prints that I've got working right now in the background. And I, I think those are the only things I can say, but those are the things I'm pretty excited about right now. And probably in the next 6 months, I think that there'll be some really cool, unique things as well.
Well, that's very exciting. And it's not like you're on camera being recorded, so feel free to, spill the beans. I'm kidding. It's been a pleasure to have this discussion with you. Always a pleasure to chat with you. And thanks once again, Tyler.
Hey, thanks, Brett. Appreciate the time.